The Texas inauguration leads to a lawsuit, with the governor himself as a defendant.
We'd like to know where they spent that money. Was there, they say there was no self-dealing, but they just say trust us.
A closer look at questions over who paid for the inauguration and where the money went. The governor's inauguration set records for fundraising and for spending. But where did the money go? That's the question some journalists are trying to answer. Now they're turning to the courts to get the financial records and naming the governor in their lawsuit. Joining us now for Insight is Jay Rood from our reporting partners at the Texas Tribune and attorney Bill Aleshire. The governor's inauguration paid for with private donations, not tax dollars. Why does the inaugural committee have to share their financial records?
Well, it's in the law. My colleague Shannon Najmabadi and I got into this the way you typically do inaugural reporting. You talk about the donors. Corporations can give, unlike during campaign season. They can't give directly to campaigns, but they can give to an inaugural. They get VIP access. So we sort of did that traditional story, but we noticed while we were doing that the law says they must maintain spending records, which we honestly were surprised about that. So we said, we'll have to ask when they put their final report in. And we asked, and we were really surprised what we found. Two main things. One, they're fighting us tooth and nail to keep every single receipt from us. And then the second thing we found is that the Abbott inaugurals, both of them, but in particular 2019, is a real outlier in terms of spending, not only in Texas, but nationally. We compared it to the state of Florida, we compared it to the Trump inaugural, and the fundraisers were gotten an extraordinary 19% of the money. We're told by fundraisers that's just off the charts. And
so is this just a matter of them interpreting the law a different way? I mean, how did we end up in a lawsuit?
Well, I think that a lot of people don't realize, as Jay said, that the government code actually creates this committee. The chairs and co-chairs get a proclamation from the Secretary of State designating them in their official capacity as chairs of the inaugural committee. The law is clear that they are a state agency. They had to keep records. They had to preserve those state records. They have to disclose them under the Texas Public Information Act. This is all clear in the law. This case is going to test the idea that state officials can get together and conceal records of how $5.3 million was spent by a public agency, regardless of whether it's public funds or not. It's spent by a public agency, a state agency, by simply making the state agency disappear, or at least go in hiding.
This really speaks to transparency, and I think it's admirable that the Texas Tribune wants to take this up as a journalism organization, but it goes beyond, you guys suing the committee. You've named the governor and the Secretary of State in the lawsuit also.
Well, one of the things that we discovered is that the people that form the inaugural committee, they're donors, they're close confidants or people who know the governor well, and he taps them. And then also his aides, his campaign finance director, or his campaign director actually became the executive director of the committee. And so, we found that the governor's office did have access to this information, and they were able to tell us, for example, they also spent $800,000 on charity. And why wouldn't you go out and say, hey, we gave money to some charitable organization and we're proud of that? They won't tell us what the names of the charitable organizations are. We'd like to know where they spent that money.
Well, we'll be paying close attention. We're glad you're doing this. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thanks for having us.